All right. Okay, cool. We're back on. All right. Okay, we are back on. Awesome. All right, let's continue. Mhm. So, so yeah, your poetry section. So your poetry section would be task 4. Would be task 4. Right? So what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna read the instructions. Always read the instructions. Always read the instructions at least twice so you can understand what's going on. Right? So let's go. So it says there, read the poem A Sudden Storm on this page. Using complete sentences, answer questions 29 to 38. Okay? Right? Just check something here. All right, good, pretty good. So let's go. So a sudden storm. Now, normally I would have a student read this on a private class, if it's a private class, okay? But seeing that we are on this platform today, right? I'll read it. So it says, a sudden storm. The wind howls, the trees sway. The loose housetops, sheets clatter and clang. The open window shuts with a bang, and the sky makes night of day. In a frenzy, the parents run, burdened with 1,000 minor cares. Hey, you there, pack the household wares. And where on earth's my son? Home skip the little children. Where have you been, you naughty boy? The child feels nothing but joy, for he loves the approach of the rain. The streets clear, the houses fill, the noise gathers as children shout, to rival the raging wind without. And naught that can move is still. A bright flash, a lighted plane, then from the once blue heaven, accompanied by noise that deafens, steadily pours the rain. All right, by Pius Oleg. Let's continue. I'm going to read it one more time. And the reason I'm reading it another time is because I'm getting familiar with the poem. Okay, so reading it a second time, right, helps me to get more familiar with it. And when I go to answer the questions, well, when I read the questions, I would most likely need to go back into the poem, right? I would most likely need to go back into the poem, right? Okay, so when I read it 2 times, at least 2 times, I'm becoming more and more familiar with the poem. So when they ask me something in the question section, I could just easily find it. I could just easily find it, okay, in the poem because I'm now very familiar with the poem. Okay, so let's go. A sudden storm. The wind howls, the trees sway. The loose housetops, sheets, clatter and clang. The open window shuts with a bang, and the sky makes night of day. In a frenzy, the parents run, burdened with 1,000 minor cares. Hey, you there, pack the household wares. And where on earth's my son? Home skip the little children. Where have you been, you naughty boy? The child feels nothing but joy, for he loves the approach of the rain. The streets clear, the houses fill, the noise gathers as children shout, and to rival the raging wind without, and naught that can move is still. A bright flash, a lighted plain. Then, from the once blue heaven, accompanied by noise that deafens, steadily pours the rain. Okay? So that is our poem right there. So let us go to this question section. Okay, let's go to the question section now. So it says here, right, number 29, this is task 4, so this is in section 2 of your exam. It says, give 2 words or phrases that appeal to the sense of hearing. I'll read that again. Give 2 words or phrases that appeal to the sense of hearing. Okay, right? So, what is the sense of hearing? What is the sense of hearing? Okay, well, like I said before, I'm going to show you all the different things you need to know so you can answer not only the questions in this poem, but the questions in other poems as well. So I'm going to go a little bit in depth. Okay, I'm going to go into a little bit of teaching here. Okay, and we're going to look at the 5 senses. We are going to look at the 5 senses, right? Okay, so the 5 senses are they are very important, not only for poetry but actually for essay writing in general. So you can see that in your descriptive, narrative descriptive, right? Okay, and even sometimes in report writing. Okay, right? So these are your 5 senses. Okay, so your 5 senses is made up of number 1, sight. I'm gonna say sight because that is the sense we normally depend on most of the time. Okay, sight, and we use our eyes to see. Right, we use our eyes to see. That is the first sense. The second sense would be hearing. Hearing is the second sense. And what part of the body do you use to hear? Well, that's going to be your ears, right? You have a picture of an ear right there. So that is most of the time the second most reliable sense. We kind of rely on our sight first, then our ears to detect things in our environment. Okay, right? Okay, so those are 2 senses. Let's go to the third sense. This is the sense of taste, right? This is the sense of taste. This sense, right? This sense is one of the best senses, right? And you use your tongue to taste. There's actually different parts of your tongue that taste different things. There's a certain part of the tongue that is receptive to sweet and sugar. Another part of the tongue is mostly sensitive to sour taste. So it's well organized. Okay? Right? So those are 3 senses: sight, hearing, and taste. Smell. Smell. We use our noses to smell. Okay? Use our noses to smell. Those are 4 senses. And finally, the sense of touch. Now they have a picture of a hand there, but generally the organ that is dedicated towards the sense of touch is your skin. And most of our body is covered in skin, right? Okay, so it's really supposed to be your skin, which is used for the sense of touch. But they put a hand because normally you would use your hand to touch. Okay, right? So those are our five senses. We need to remember this. And all those senses point toward in the middle there, point to the brain. So the brain is constantly, all the time, picking up the stimuli, okay? Always ready to receive messages from these parts of your body. So it can detect what's going on in its surroundings in the environment. Okay? So those are your five senses right there, right? And particularly for this part of the poem, they ask for things that apply to the sense of hearing. What did the poem say? Give two words or phrases that appeal. Okay, what do they mean by appeal? Right? That means they are directed towards the sense of hearing, right? They want to be involved with the sense of hearing. So they are going to be two words or phrases, two words, two singular words or phrases, two short groups of words in this poem that when you hear them, okay, it's going to be directed towards the sense of hearing. Okay, right? So let us now go back into the poem. Let's go back into the poem, right? And we are more familiar with the poem because we read it twice. So what two words or two phrases can you see here that would appeal to the sense of hearing? You can write them in the chat now, right? You can write them in the chat now. I'm looking in the chat, okay? Right? So what two words or two phrases that would appeal to the sense of hearing in this poem? Let's try this here. So you may find two words, somebody, you're not hearing me. All right, testing 1, 2. Okay, all right, good. So yeah, okay, so house and clatter and clang. All right, so house would be a word, clatter would be another word, clang would be another word, right? Okay, very good. So those are actually three words. Good job. Those are actually three words there. The wind howls. Okay, the wind howls. The wind howls. The wind howls is a phrase. That's a very short group of words, right? The wind howls. So very good. You could actually use that. Any others? So we have the wind howls. We have clatter and clang. Right? Anything else? What about line 3? What about line 3? What about line 3? Do you know where line 3 is? Let me show you something with poems, guys. Check this out. Right? Right? So when you look at a poem, do you see that number 5 there? See that little number 5 right there? That means that that is line 5. Okay? That is line 5 in the poem. Because this is line 1, the first line, line 2, the second line, line 3, the third line 4, the fourth line, and line 5. In this poem, line 5 says, in a frenzy the parents run. Okay, then we have line 6, burdened, line 7, hey, line 8, and line 9, home, and line 10, where have you been, you naughty boy? So those numbers there, 5, 10, and 15, those are actually, and 20, those are actually lines in the poem. And they don't give you 1, 2, 3, 4, all up to 20. They just give you in multiples of 5. So if I say look for line 3, okay, this is line 5 here. So just check it back. This is line 4 and this is line 3. So my question to you here, what word appeals to the sense of hearing in line 3? What word appeals to the sense of hearing in line 3? Any ideas? What word appeals to the sense of hearing in line 3? Bam. Excellent hook. Excellent hook. Right? Good. Right? Bam. The window shuts with a bam. Alright, good. You could actually use shuts as well. Right? Or you could use the phrase shuts with a bam. Shuts with a bam. Okay? So that's the phrase. Awesome. Now, check this out. Since we are on this, since we are focusing on the sense of hearing in poems, right? We have seen certain words. We have clatter, we have clang, we have bang. Okay, right? These words have a special name, right? Right? These words have a special name, right? Can anybody remember what is that special name we give these words? It's a word. Let me tell you what these words are. These words sound their meaning. They're like, they are sound, okay? But they are normally written with an exclamation mark. It starts with O. It begins with O. And it's a long name. And sometimes it's kind of difficult to spell. Okay? Right? So clatter, clang, bang. There are a couple more in the poem, in the other stanzas. Good. Right. Okay. Close. You got the word, but you kind of spelled it incorrectly. Let's go. Let's have just a quick revision on that there. Right. Have everything and just get that particular one. And here is the word right here. And the word is onomatopoeia. Right? Alright, the word is onomatopoeia. And an onomatopoeia is a word that names a sound and sounds like a sound. Okay? An onomatopoeia is a word that names a sound and sounds like a sound. So onomatopoeias appeal to the sense of hearing, and they bring poems and stories to life. I'll read that again. An onomatopoeia is a word that names a sound that sounds like a sound. Onomatopoeias appeal to the sense of hearing, and they bring poems and stories to life. So, for example, we have splash, we have boom, and we have bang. Splash, boom, and bang. Okay, those are onomatopoeias. These are some other examples of onomatopoeias. We have buzz, as in the bees buzzed above me. Okay, the bees buzzed above me. We have snore. Grandpa snores loudly. Grandpa snores loudly. We have drip. I hear the drip of the faucet. Drip. I hear the drip of the faucet. Croak. Frogs croak loudly in the swamp. Croak. Frogs croak loudly in the swamp. Splash. The children splash in the pool. Splash. The children splash in the pool. And growl. The dog growled at the car. Growl. The dog growled at the car. So those are some examples of onomatopoeias there. So in this poem, there are actually many onomatopoeias, right? And you can use those words to appeal, like the question said. The question said, give two words or phrases that appeal to the sense of hearing. Okay? Appeal to the sense of hearing. So we have clatter, we have clang, we have, what about, yeah, the wind howls. Does that appeal to the sense of hearing? The wind howls. Okay? You're hearing the wind howling. Okay? Sometimes on a cold, chilly night and the breeze blows a certain way, you can hear the wind howls. Howls. That phrase appeals to the sense of hearing. So we have clatter, clang, bang. Okay? Are there any words that appeal to the sense of hearing in the second paragraph? Right. What about the third paragraph? What about the third paragraph? Or what about the fourth paragraph? Are there any words that appeal to the sense of sound in the fourth paragraph? This fourth paragraph here, any words that appeal to the sense of sound in the fourth paragraph? Okay. What words appeal to the sense of sound in the fourth paragraph? I'll give you a hint. It's actually in line 14. It's in line 14. Shout, exactly, line 14. Okay? And noise as well. Good. Noise and shout. Okay? But appeal to the sense of hearing. Okay? Right? What words appeal to the sense of sound in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and the fifth stanza? Yes, shout. Yeah. So what words appeal to the sense of hearing in the fifth stanza? Stanza number 5. Stanza number 5, the stanza right here. What words appeal to the sense of hearing in the fifth stanza? No, okay. Fifth stanza, last stanza here. The noise gathers the children shout. Okay, yeah, we got that. Fifth stanza now. Okay. So the noise gathers as the children shout. That's the fourth stanza. I want the fifth stanza. Right, okay, noise again in the fifth stanza. There's another word that appeals to the sense of sound in the fifth stanza. There's yet another word that appeals to the sense of sound in the fifth stanza. Steadily pause the read. That's kind of more sight. Deafens, excellent word. Deafens. Deafens, no, you probably saw deafens and, you probably tell yourself, well, that doesn't deal with sound, that's silence. But it still deals, it's dealing with sound, or rather, the lack of sound. The lack of sound. So let's say, for example, for a deaf person, what's wrong with a deaf person? Not that nothing wrong with them, but they cannot hear. So it's still dealing with sound. It's still appealing to the sense of sound. Okay? So the word deafens there, it still actually appeals to the sense of sound in the sense that it appeals to the absence of sound. So it's still in the sound category. Do you understand? Right? So in this poem, they ask for give 2 words or phrases, and we've actually found all. So look how much you could have found. You could have written howls, clatter, clang, bang, shout, deafens, noise. Right? Those are the words. Those are the words you could have written. And you know what? Let's write in those words. So we're gonna answer them entirely. Right? So we're gonna write all the possible answers. Not only the answers that are needed, but all the possible answers. Okay, so we have howls, HOWLS, we have clatter, we have clang, we have bang, we have shout, we have deafens, we have noise, right? So those are the words that would appeal to the sense of sound. So guys, I'm actually writing all of them in, right? I'm actually writing all of them in. So all of those are possible answers, right? All of those are possible answers, right? Okay. All right, excellent, good. So let's continue. So now let's write in the possible phrases. Let's write in the possible phrases. Okay. So the possible phrases we could have written. They just asked for 2, but I'm writing all the possible phrases. We could have put the wind howls. Wind howls. We could have put sheets, clatter, clang, shut with a bang. We could have written noise that deafens. We could have put steadily, pause the rain. I get what you're saying with that. Steadily pause the rain. And finally, children shout. Children shout. So all those, guys, all those are possible answers that you could have written. So I'm not just writing the 2 answers that you need to write. I'm writing all the possible things you could have written. Okay? Right? Awesome. Excellent. So are there any questions in the chat? We okay with this question? Are we pretty okay with this question? Number 29, when they ask, give 2 words or phrases that appeal to the sense of hearing. Right? If you're okay with that, put 111 in the chat. If you're okay with that, put 111 in the chat now. Yeah? Right. Oh, and remember, we also focus on the onomatopoeia. The onomatopoeia as well. Right? So the onomatopoeias would definitely be something to look out for. It's very good at, you could be able to identify it. Right? Excellent. Let's go on to number 30. So number 30, pretty good question. It says, identify the mood in stanza 1 and give 1 example to support your answer. I'll read that again. Identify the mood in stanza 1 and give 1 example to support your answer. So let us go to stanza 1. And you know, in poems, guys, we refer to these as stanzas. Okay? Some people call it paragraph, but the proper name would be stanzas. So stanzas, right? Stanzas would be the different parts of the poem. So in this poem, there's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stanzas. The poem. Right? So on the side, refer to stanza 1. And we have found that what the question said again, identify the mood in stanza 1 and give one example to support your answer. Right? Now, what do they mean by mood? That's a big question, right? What do they mean by mood? What does mood refer to in a poem? So let's look at that. Let's look at this. Okay? Right? Now if you take your notes, you can't take notes, but I would much rather you pay attention right now. Okay, you can look at the recording and get the note after, but I really want you to pay attention. Right? So in a poem, right, mood is the atmosphere or emotion in the poem created by the poet. Okay? Mood is the atmosphere or emotion in the poem created by the poet. And moods in poetry can be happy, angry, silly, sad, excited, fearful, or thoughtful. There's another one they like to use called melancholy, right? Yeah, feelings basically. They like to use this word melancholy sometimes. You guys definitely will do that in Form 1, okay? And the poet uses words and images to create a certain mood, okay? So the authors or the writer or the poet, his or her purpose helps to determine the mood, right? Okay, so I'll go through that one more time. So mood is the atmosphere or emotion in the poem. It is created by the poet. It can be happy, angry, silly, sad, excited, fearful, or thoughtful, right? So you get different feelings. And the poet uses words and images to create mood, right? Okay, is that clear? So that's the mood in the poem. Now, generally, I'll tell you this, most of the times a poem would begin with a certain mood, like the first stanza, and by the time you get to the last stanza, it's a whole different mood. So you get a certain feeling when you read the first stanza, and as you read the poem and you get to the end, sometimes, quite often, the last stanza has a whole different mood. It changes. Okay? So what we want to do, we just want to read the first stanza here. Just exclude the rest of the poem now. For now, let's read the first stanza again to already get the feeling of the first stanza. So it says here, the wind howls, the trees sway, the loose housetops sheets clatter and clang. The open window shuts with a bang, and the sky makes night of day. Okay, so what feelings do you get when you read that? Do you get a happy feeling? Do you get a sad feeling? Do you get like a scared feeling, a frightened feeling, a worried feeling? Right? What feelings do you get when you read that? Okay, is it a happy feeling really? Does it sound like a happy feeling? The wind howls and the trees sway. Loose housetop sheets clatter and clang. The open window shuts with a bang. So we get a happy feeling there. I don't really get a happy feeling, to be honest. It's not really, look at the certain words he uses. The wind howls. That's not really a happy feeling. The open window shuts with a bang. I don't really get a happy feeling there. Right? That's kind of more of a frightening feeling. If you were home, let's say you were home and just so you hear the window just bang and the wind just blew it in. Right? Okay? It's gonna frighten you. Right? You're gonna feel frightened, you're gonna feel scared. And check this one. The sky makes night of day. The sky makes night of day. What is that saying? That is actually saying the sky is dark. It's not nighttime, It's not nighttime, but it's making night of day, meaning it is daytime, it is in the daytime hours, but the sky is very, very dark. So it's not really a happy day. happy day normally has a lot of sunshine in it. Okay, right? So, right, so I'm seeing some good answers in chat here. So, generally, the general mood of this poem, you can use fear, frightening, frightened, worried. You could probably say a fearsome mood, a scary mood, terrifying mood. Okay? How about this word anxious? Anxious. Okay? And you can also say threatening. So what I'm gonna do, right? Um, right? So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna write all the possible words that you can put afraid. I'm gonna put all the words that you can put, right? You can just put a few words or even one word, but I'm just being thorough here, right? Because I'm seeing a lot of different answers and all of them are right in the chat. I think everybody, right? I think everybody kind of got uh like a fair idea of this, right? So let's try this here. Let's go, yeah. So I'm gonna type in all the different moods you can get. So all the different words you can use. So let's say we have what you guys said. Well, I said threatening. Also have excitement. You have excitement. Excitement is not only happiness, it can be excited, like in a afraid state. We have anxiety. We have anxiety. We have surprise. We have terror. We have scary. We have scared. We have frightened. We have gloomy, right? We have worried. You can also say a fearsome mood, right? A fearsome. All those are things that you can use to describe the mood in this poem, right? Okay. Yep, pretty much so. Right? So those are the possible moods, right? Those are the possible moods. Now let's go over some examples. Let's look at some examples. Petrifying. Okay, right? Petrifying. I like that one, right? I guess you could also use that one as well, right? Now, very important, we need to find these moods, right? You need to show where these moods are taken from, okay? Right? So, these moods, right, can be taken from certain lines in the poem. It says, the loose housetops, sheets clatter and clang, right? The loose housetops, sheets clatter and clang. That creates a scary mood. And we can also say the sky makes night of day. Like what I said before, the sky is actually dark, right? Like it's about to rain or a storm is coming. But the name of the poem is The Sudden Storm. So you know, right? And the wind howls. And the wind howls. So, example, you can write the wind howls. Well, I'm gonna put it in inverted commas because it's taken from the poem, right? It's not my writing. So you can say the wind howls. You can say sky makes night of day. Sky makes night of day, right? And you can also put the loose housetops. Loose housetops, housetops, sheets, clatter, and clan. Pretty much. Yep. Awesome. So I put all the possible answers. So you guys could use those possible answers. Right? Okay? Excellent. Let's go to number 31. Are we okay? Everybody okay? Put 111 if you're okay. All right, just want to make sure everybody is good. So this is like an open class here. Right? Right. Everybody okay? If you're okay, put 111 in the chat before we go on to the next question. Right? Good. So number 31 says, and the sky makes night of day. And the sky makes night of day. I was talking about that. It says line 4. Right? I was talking about that earlier on. And the question is, what does this line tell the reader? What does this line tell the reader? Now, what I'm going to do, you see how they give you 2 lines, guys? They give you 2 lines. Please write and explain yourself. Don't put a one-word answer. This is for 1 mark. But when you're doing an exam, you are not going to be there to tell the examiner or who's correcting your paper, you're meant to do this or you're meant to do that. Okay? Try to explain yourself as much as you can. Okay? And be descriptive with your answer. You have 2 lines there. So write, you could probably use all 2 lines, right? Explain yourself exactly what you mean by that, by your answer, right? So the line is, and the sky makes night of day. So I want to see what you would write for this. Put it in the chat, right? Put it in the chat. Okay, let's see what you guys come up with this here. I mentioned it before, so you have to be paying attention. What does that line mean? What does that line mean? This is for you to infer. This is for you to infer. Right? So what does that line mean? The sky makes night of day. What does that mean? What do you get by that? Write your answer in the chat. Write your answer as if you were writing your answer in an exam. That's the best way to answer this. So I can see, so I can guide you along. Right? Okay, what does that mean? The sky makes night of day. Give you a couple minutes to check that. I think it means that the sky is dark, but it is evening. Okay, the sky is dark, but it doesn't have to be evening. It is in the daytime. It is in the daytime. You said that before. The storm is coming. Okay. Due to dark cloud, it tells the blue sky gray. Anybody else? Anybody else? Any ideas for this here? What does the sky makes night of day mean? You have 1 more person to answer. 1 more person to answer. What does the sky makes night of day mean? The storm, okay. 1 more person to answer. Sky makes night of day. All right. Okay. All right. Pretty good. So, I think everybody has a basic idea of what's going on here. So you could have put, like, despite it being daylight, right? The sky becomes dark like night. There's a lot of cloud cover in a storm because when it's about to rain, there's a lot of clouds. And what do clouds do? These clouds would block out the sun. So there's very little sunshine right now. Okay, very, very little sunshine right now. So there's a lot of cloud cover, so it is dark, but it is still daylight. There's not any nighttime, it is still daylight. So it's making the day seem like night. It's very dark, but still daylight. Okay? And the sky has turned, because of the storm, the sky has become dark, like if it was night. And that all adds to the sadness and the gloominess and the kind of frightened, sad, anxious feeling of the entire poem. Right? Okay? Awesome. So you could have written, yeah, that's pretty much it. Right? You could have written, so I'm just gonna write an answer here. Right? I'm just gonna write an answer that you can use here. Right? So let's say, for example, but despite being daylight, LIGHT, the sky becomes dark like night, and the dark clouds of the storm are blocking blocking out the storm. Right? Right? And this is another word you could use. This is like a meteorological term. It is overcast. Remember that word, overcast. Okay? Oh, that refers to like um it's about to rain. So if you listen to the news and listen to the meteorologist, the weatherman or weatherwoman, if they use the term overcast, it means that, you know, it's setting up to rain. Clouds are setting themselves up to rain over a certain area. Okay? So that's for 1 mark. That's pretty good. Pretty happy with the answers. Good job, guys. Pretty happy with the answers there. Okay? Number 32. Number 32 says, why were the parents described as, open inverted commas, burdened with 1,000 minor cares in line 6? So they actually told you which line it is in. So the question is, why were the parents described as burdened with 1,000 minor cares in line 6? Let's go to line 6. So I know where line 5 is because they tell me that with the little 5 on the left here. And line 6 says, burdened with 1,000 minor cares. Now, to answer this, what you can do, right, if you know the answer, or even if you want to check over, make sure that you're good, right, what you can do, you can read that line in its context, meaning you can just read the whole paragraph, and that will give you a rounded idea of that line when you read the lines before and after it. Do you understand? Right? This gives you a really, really good idea of what that line is doing there and what its purpose is. So that second stanza here, in a frenzy the parents run, burdened with 1,000 minor cares. Okay, hey you there, pack the household wares, and where on earth's my son? So what does burden mean? Anybody has any idea what burden means? What does burden means? Go quick in the dictionary and tell me what burden means. If you're feeling burdened, how are you feeling? Is it a good feeling? What does burden mean? What does burden mean? You're burdening somebody with something. Okay. And also, while we add that, what is the meaning of minor? What is the meaning of minor? So what is the meaning of burden? And what is the meaning of minor? What do those words mean? A little bit of vocabulary here, guys. What's the meaning of burden? Or what's the meaning of minor? I'm looking in the chat. You can check your dictionary. You You could do a quick search, a Google search if you need to, right? Right? Um, yeah. What's the meaning of burden or what's the meaning of minor? Because you want to use that right now. Do a quick search on that. You really get the meaning of it. Any ideas? Stress out, burden. Right, pretty good. Excellent. Excellent work. Excellent work. Right. Okay. So what is the meaning of burden? Right. What is the meaning of burden? Right. Good. Stress out. Okay. Right. And what's the meaning of minor? What's the meaning of minor? Right. Right. Good. Yeah, minor, small. Right? Minor, small. So the parents are stressed out with 1,000. Well, I don't think it's 1,000, but it means when they write the word 1,000, it means that it's a lot. Right? They mean it's a lot. So there's 1,000, meaning a lot of small problems. Right? Okay? Right? So the parents are stressed out with many, many small problems. Do you understand? Right? And even the word before that, in a frenzy, meaning that it's a lot of things that they are doing and it's being done in confusion. So basically, I'll let the cat out the bag here. The parents are basically trying to prepare for the sudden storm. Because it's a sudden storm, they were not prepared for the storm. Okay? Right? They were not prepared for the storm. So it happened suddenly. So now that it is here, now that the storm is here, they are trying their best, right, to get prepared. And that is causing confusion and they are running about all over. Actually, this line here, line 6, 7, 8, line 8 says, "And where on earth my son?" So they're so busy trying to prepare for the storm, they kind of don't know where their own children are. So it's a lot of confusion going on here, right? Okay, so burden with 1,000 minor cares, right? Burden with 1,000 minor cares, right? You can see that possible answers you can write the parents had to ensure everyone and everything was safe, ensure that everyone and everything was safe. You could also say that they were scared of what. If you guys need to write a question and you can't, probably need to subscribe. So don't forget to subscribe and like the channel, the video that is, like the video and subscribe to the channel. They were scared of what the storm would do because they were unprepared, right? Okay. Basically, the storm was coming and they were fearful, right? They were scared of what the storm would do and they were fearful for their homes and their T-H-E-I-R, their children. Right? So that can be your answer there. So the parents had to ensure everyone and everything was safe. They were scared, the parents that is, of what the storm would do, and they were fearful for their homes and their children. All right, okay. So is that clear? Are we understanding that? If put a 111 in the chat if that's okay. If you understand that. All right, let me make sure everybody is good. That's pretty easy, 1 mark. That's pretty easy, 1 mark. All right, okay. Everybody good? Deandra good? Okay, pretty good. Excellent. All right. Good work, everyone. So, number 33, this is pretty easy if you know it. So it says identify 2 examples of personification in the poem. Identify 2 examples of personification in the poem. Now, what is personification? What exactly is personification? So let us look at a little revision on personification. This is actually my favorite literary device. Okay, so personification, right, is a literary device. Personification gives an animal, a plant, or any object qualities or abilities only humans have. I'll read that again. Personification gives an animal, a plant, or any object qualities or abilities only humans have. Okay? So, personification adds interest to your poems and stories. So, check this one out. So, this caiman is smiling. Right? So this caiman is smiling. Right? So, the caiman is not actually smiling, but because it's looking at the camera, it has a lot of teeth, right? It's looking as if it's smiling for the photo, but it's not really smiling. So when you say it's smiling, it's like you are saying that it's a person that a person would normally smile when taking a photo, right? Okay, so the caiman is smiling is an example of personification. Check this one out. A thirsty plant begs for water. A thirsty plant begs for water. Now, when a plant is thirsty, or I should say, when the plant needs water, what do plants do? They kind of droop down, right? They kind of bend their heads, right? They bend their heads and they bend forward. It's like a beggar. Have you guys ever seen someone begging for food or money? What does the person do? They actually bend down. Well, not all the way, but I mean it's like they bend down and they stretch forth their hand, meaning that they are begging for something. And it's just like that with the plant. It's like the plant is begging for water. The plant is begging you, please water me, right? But the plant is not actually doing that, but it looks as if it's a person begging. So we can say a thirsty plant begs for water. Do you understand? Right? So a thirsty plant begs for water. Check this one out. The sun winks at me. The sun winks at me. Now that is saying that, well, this is a really cool one, right? It's a really cool one because as you can see there, the sun is shining, it's light rays, and the coconut tree, I'm sure this is taken like close to a beach or something, right? This photo. The tree, the leaves of the tree, the coconut tree, they are moving and swaying in the breeze, and the sunlight is peeking in and being blocked. It's passing through the leaves, and you can see the light, and then it's being blocked. So that happens one moment it's coming through, and the other moment it's not coming through. So it's looking at if somebody is winking at you with their eye, like they're winking with you, winking at you. So the sunlight winks at me, or the sun winks at me. So that's an example of personification there, right? Okay. Some other examples of personification here You can actually pause the video when you look at the recording and take these down if you like. These are pretty really good ones. So news travels quickly, right? News travels quickly. And I remember telling somebody news, N-E-W-S, the word news, N-E-W-S, that actually is a shortened form of north, east, west, and south, right? North, right? Right? North, east, right? West, and south, right? That is actually a shortened form of news. That's where we get the word news from. So if you're looking at the news, you're looking at the information that is coming from the north, the east, the west, and the south, right? So news travels quickly. All right. Continuing on, the stars winked at me. The stars winked at me. The stars don't actually wink at you. The stars don't actually have eyes. But when we look up at them in the sky, when we look at the stars in the sky, they are twinkling. You ever see stars twinkling? There's actually a song, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. The twinkle, the word wink is in twinkle, right? So that's like a form of personification there. Check this one out. The wind howled at night. Well, um, uh, 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 you saw that today, right? How about this one? Cars dance on the wet roads. Cars dance on the wet roads. Now, this one is pretty cool. Um, when the road is wet and you're driving too fast, what can happen to the vehicles on the road? Can anybody tell me? If the road is wet, if the road is wet and the cars are on the road and they're driving too fast, what's going to happen to them? What's going to happen to a car that is driving too fast along a wet road? Any ideas? I want to hear this particular one. This, okay. They skate. Good, pretty good. Yes, they skate. Right? They skate and they skid and they drift. Okay? Right? And they slide all about because they're going too fast. And you can see the word dance. Because when somebody is dancing, they're just moving about all over. And we're basically saying the cars dance on the wet roads. So dance actually replaces the word skate, as Deandra said there. And it looks, we use the word dance as a personification because the cars are not dancing. But because they are moving all about in a random order, it looks as if they are dancing, like people dancing. Right? They don't have any particular order, like somebody who's dancing like really free. Okay? Check this other one. Heavy rains pounded the roof. Heavy rains pounded the roof. Okay? So when rain falls very heavily, it sounds as if somebody is up on the roof, pounding the roof. Okay? Right? It sounds as if the rain is actually a person on the roof that is beating the roof, pounding on the roof, especially on like a galvanized roof. Okay? So heavy rains pounded the roof. That's an example of personification. Right? He slept like a baby. Check this one. Lightning dance up in the sky. Can lightning dance? Anybody ever seen lightning before? Have you ever seen lightning before? Has anybody ever seen lightning before? It happens very quickly, so I'm just asking. Right? Happens very, very quickly. So I just want to know if you've seen lightning before. So if you have seen lightning before, you would know what it looks like. And it's very, 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 very bright. It's very, very bright. And it kind of strikes without order. It strikes like all, it goes down towards the earth, but it doesn't have a particular order. Like it doesn't go straight down, okay? But it just kind of goes in a random order. You can't really follow it, okay? It kind of does its own thing, right? And just like that one, you know, It's like somebody dancing again without order. Okay, so lightning dance up in the sky. Right? So you can pause the video and write down some of these, right? Let's check out this last one. The sunlight kissed my cheeks. The sunlight kissed my cheeks. Now the sunlight doesn't actually kiss your cheeks, but it says there, the sunlight kissed your cheeks. A cheek, not a cheek. A kiss is something that is warm, right? A kiss is something that is warm, right? And the sunlight is also warm. So it's like if, just like a person who would kiss you on your cheek and you would feel the warmth of them, right? You are also feeling this, the warmth of the sunlight as the sunlight touches your cheek. So that's an example of personification there. So many examples here, right? Now, let's go back to the poem. They said identify 2 examples of personification in the poem. So now that we know what personification is, we just need 2 examples. You're going to get a mark for 1, writing 1 in this line. We're going to get another mark for writing 1 example in this line. So altogether, that's going to give us 2 marks. Okay, right? We're going to get a mark for writing 1 here in this line and another mark for getting 1 here in this line. So altogether, those are going to be your 2 marks. Okay, so let's go back to the poem here. And let me know if you see an example of personification. There's actually one in the poem that was in my example sheet before. Right. Okay. Right. And anybody see any example of personification in the poem? I know one is pretty easy to find. Right. Any ideas? The wind howls. Perfect. Excellent. Right. Good. Can I see another example of personification in the poem? Any other ideas of personification in the poem that you see? Any other examples of personification? The wind howls, okay, that's one. Because the wind doesn't actually howl. The wind doesn't really have a voice or a voice box or a mouth to make a noise. But the way that it passes through the trees and the buildings and over the land, it can create a sound. Okay. Any other examples of personification? I give you guys 1 minute. 1 minute to try to find another one. There are actually 2 more. 2, well, definitely 2, arguably more than 2, but definitely 2 other examples of personification in this. One minute. You can have a go. Guys, okay if you get it wrong. Two other examples of personification. Okay, I'll give you a hint. It's in stanza 1. Well, the wind howls is in stanza 1, but there's another one in stanza 1. And there's one in stanza 3. Sorry, stanza 4. So there's one in stanza 1. There's another example of personification in stanza 1, and another example of personification in stanza 4. Yes, so, okay, good. So what is it? Okay, I'll tell you. So the wind howls, and check this out. The trees sway. That's another example of personification there. The trees sway. The trees sway. So the trees are swaying as if they are people, right? They are sway. The breeze, the heavy breeze of the storm, the heavy wind of the storm is causing the trees to sway, right? Okay. So what other example of personification is there in stanza 4? The streets clear, the houses fill, the noise gathers as children shout, to rival the raging wind without, and naught that can move is still. What's an example of personification in that stanza? One minute. Let me see who's gonna get this. Try hard. Think about it. What thing that is not a person sounds as if it's a person? Few of them? Okay, well, what are they? Not sure? Okay, check this one out, guys. So, to rival the raging wind. To rival the raging wind. Okay, so that is an example of personification. The wind is blowing so hard that it seems as if the wind is angry. But the wind is not angry like a person gets angry, but it is blowing so hard and violent as if it's an angry person. So those are your three examples of personification here. Right? Okay. So first example would be the wind howls. Howls. I'll put it in inverted commas. Just take it from the passage. Right, the wind howls. You could also have they asked for two, but I'm putting three. Okay, so you could have a good all-around answer, right? The wind howls. You could also put the trees sway. Okay, I'll put in all the possible answers that you can use, not just the necessary ones, right? Because I'm sure you guys have different answers, right? And the final one was the raging wind, meaning the very angry wind, so strong as if it's an angry person getting on bad, basically, right? Okay, identify three examples of personification in the poem. The wind howls, the trees sway, those were in stanza 1, and the raging wind was in stanza 3. Particularly what line? That was in line 15. Awesome. Almost done, guys. Almost done. Right? Okay, number 34. Parents and children have different feelings about the storm. Complete the table below to show these differences. Right? So I'll read that again. Parents and children have different feelings about the storm. Complete the table below to show these differences. So persons in the poem, the children generally feel happy. What details in the poem show that the children feel happy? So the persons in the poem, the children, those children feel happy. Where in the poem does it say that the children are happy? So let me go back to the poem. Where does it say in the poem that the children feel happy? Take a read there. What line tells me that the children are happy? If you could tell me the number of the line, that would be great. ideas? Have a read there. Which line shows that the children are happy? Line 14. Good. The noise gathers as children shout to rival the raging wind without. Okay, good. What about this stanza here? What line shows that the children are happy in that stanza there? Have a read there. Any particular line? Line 11. Right. The child feels nothing but joy. Very good. Very good. The child feels nothing but joy. Right? Excellent. So we have line 11 and line 14. Right? So I can put feels nothing but joy. Children feel nothing but joy. Feel nothing but joy. I guess you could also put as children shout to rival the raging. Right? Awesome. Check this one out. The parents were anxious. Right? What does anxious mean? Meaning like they feel nervous and uneasy, almost scared. Right? So they want the details from the poem. So what lines in the poem show that the parents were anxious? What lines in the poem show that the parents were anxious? How about this one? In a frenzy, the parents run. That's one, right? In a frenzy, the parents run. Okay? Right? Right. So many, you can use many for this here. So write a few. You can say in a frenzy, the parents. Also put burdened with 1,000 minor cares. Burdened minor cares. Burdened with 1,000 minor cares. You could also have where have you been? Your parents lose you and then they suddenly find you, suddenly show up, they'll be angry that you were missing, right? Where have you been, you naughty boy? Even write another one that says there, hey, you there, hey, you there, pack the household wares. Pack the household wares. That means they want to pack the stuff that could be broken. Household wares are stuff that could be broken, and they are shouting to the children to do that, meaning the children were not very much attention, well, not very much attentive. The children were not listening to what they were saying. Okay, right? Or people were saying something in line 5. In a frenzy, the parents run. Yeah, pretty much. Line 6, line 4. Good. Not line 4, right? Good. Excellent work, excellent work. Right. So we have a couple more. Explain what is suggested by the streets clear, the houses fill. Line 13. Explain what is suggested by the streets clear, the houses fill in line 13. So let's read line 13. Right? The streets clear, the houses fill. Now it's a storm happening. And what does that mean? The streets clear and the houses fill. Well, if the streets are cleared, then that means that no one is in the street anymore. So I guess then the thunder is coming, the rain is coming, no one is outside. And it says that the house is filled. So basically, that means that everybody that was outside is now looking for shelter and they have gone indoors. So we can say this here. We can say, right? You can say this. You can say, everyone went inside or indoors as the storm came and the streets were now empty. Also say people were scared, right? People were so scared of the storm that they quickly cleared the streets and went into their houses. Right? Okay? So basically people were looking for shelter and they didn't want to get wet in the rain, and everybody was preparing for the storm in the neighborhood. Right? Is that clear? Do we understand that? How is that going? Is everybody okay? Put 111 in the chat if you're okay with that. Right? Let me know how you're feeling with that. How is that going for you? Is that easy to understand? Pretty much. Yeah? Okay. Right? All right, cool. Let's go. So according to the poem, identify one word from stanza 4, which means the same as nothing. So this is pretty easy. According to the poem, identify one word from stanza 4, which means the same as nothing. So let's go to stanza 4. Stanza 1, stanza 2, stanza 3, stanza 4. So what word here means the same as nothing? What word in the poem means the same as nothing? And that word is and not. And not that can move is still. Right? That word is not, meaning zero or nothing. Okay? So that word is not. Alright? So you can say the word is not. Pretty easy, that one. Right? Some people probably say not when they refer to zero, meaning nothing. Right? Number 37, almost done. List 2 sources of noise mentioned in stanza 4. List 2 sources of noise mentioned in stanza 4. So what things make noise in stanza 4? Right? What 2 things make noise in stanza 4? Have a quick read there. I want you to answer this one. What 2 things make noise in stanza 4? What is making a noise in stanza 4? What is making noise in stanza 4? Children, cool, it's children. What else is making noise in stanza 4? But the children shout. Okay, so what else is making noise in stanza 4? The wind, right? So the wind. So the children and the wind are making noise in stanza 4. So you can say children, children, and you can say the wind. And finally, in your own words, describe what happens in stanza 5. So what is happening in stanza 5? Right? So in stanza 5, let's take a read of that. This is the last question. It says, a bright flash, a lighted plane. Then, from the once blue heaven, accompanied by noise that deafens, steadily pours the rain. So during a thunderstorm, what would make a bright flash? Right? Right? During a thunderstorm, what do you call the thing that makes a bright flash? What do you call the thing that makes a bright flash? Parent. So, no, a parent would make a bright flash. Lightning. Good. Right. What are you friend? Parents, no, in stanza 4, there are no parents in stanza 4. So, no, not parents, right? So, good. Lightning would make a bright flash. In a thunderstorm, what would be a noise that deafens? What would be a loud noise during a thunderstorm? That would be the thunder, right? And then steadily pours the rain. That means the rain has begun to fall, right? So we can put for this here, right? The storm begins to strike, and there was thunder and rain, right? The storm begins to rage, right? You could also say lightning, right? You could also say lightning, Lightning, lightning burst into the sky, and the thunder and the rain began the rains began to fall. Right. And that takes us to the end of this poem. Right? So we answered the entire poem and we looked at some stuff that you could use for other poems as well. Right? So put out 111 in the chat if you're okay with this poem now. Right? Put out 111 in the chat if you're okay with this poem now. Let me know how this was for you. And you could use this as a reference source when you're revising poetry. Because like I said, you could use this to revise other poems as well. Right? Okay. And that's it. That's it for today. For this poem here. So if you have any questions, you could always WhatsApp me or call me at that number on your screen there, 713-6860. So I will remain online in case anybody has any questions, right? I will remain online in case anybody has any questions. And we're going to be here next week to do some more poetry. And soon we're going to do some comprehension as well. Okay, so we're trying to get 100 marks in that language this year. All right. Okay, so I'll stay online in case you guys need help with anything. Okay. Okay. So if you want to get into our private classes, we have classes every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Just contact me and we can get things going and get you started with that. Okay, classes have been going very good. They're very, very intense. And a lot of work is covered. A lot of work is covered. Okay. All right, bye. I'll stay online for a couple minutes again in case anybody has any questions. All right. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the Facebook page so you can stay connected and get updated. Okay. All right. Okay, everyone, have a great day. Bye for now.